If you have spent years in a classroom staring at a chalkboard, conjugating verbs, and memorizing lists of vocabulary, but you still freeze up when someone actually speaks to you in another language, I have some good news for you. It is not your fault. You are not bad at languages. You do not lack a special gene that polyglots have. The problem is simply the method you were using. Most of us were taught languages the exact same way we were taught history or mathematics. We treated the language like a puzzle to be solved logically. But a language is not a subject to be studied. It is a skill to be acquired. Learning is what happens in school. It is conscious. Acquiring is what happens to babies. It is subconscious. It is the feeling that a sentence sounds right or wrong, even if you cannot explain why. When you speak your native language, you're not thinking about grammar rules. You just speak. That is acquisition, and that is where we need to get you. So how you do it? Comprehensible input. This is the most important concept you will ever hear in language learning. Your brain is a pattern recognition machine. If you feed enough data, it will eventually figure out the patterns on its own, without you needing to memorize a rule book. It's basically about listening to and reading in another language at a level that's slightly above your current one. You need to understand the message, even if you do not understand every single word. But hey, if you understand nothing, that is just noise. It does not help. But if you listen to a story where you understand 60 or 70%, your brain fills in the gaps. That is where the magic happens. So you need to listen to stories, watch videos, or listen to podcasts. When you're interested in what is being said, you forget that you're listening to a foreign language. That S when the magic happens. But listening is only half the battle. You also need to create an immersive environment. You do not need to buy a plane ticket to Madrid or Rio to immerse yourself. You can build an immersion environment right here in your own home. Change the language on your phone. Start following native speakers on social media. Watch your favorite series on Netflix with that language's audio. Expose yourself to the language as much as you can. Now, let's talk about speaking. There is a myth that you should not speak until you're perfect. This is wrong. It's also wrong to think that you need someone to talk to. You can practice speaking right now, by yourself. Don't worry about looking weird. You already did by repeating stuff in Russian in the bus while using Duolingo. Many people like what's called shadowing. This is where you listen to a native speaker and repeat exactly what they say, almost at the same time. You mimic their speed, their emotion, and their intonation. You need to build that muscle memory. Talk to yourself throughout the day. Narrate your life. And if you do not know a word, look it up immediately. This makes the vocabulary relevant to your actual life, which means you're much more likely to remember it than a random word from a textbook. But none of this matters without consistency. Studying for 5 hours on a Sunday and then doing nothing for the rest of the week is useless. Your brain will forget everything. It is much better to do 15 minutes every single day than a marathon session once a week. Plus, you could do everything perfectly, but it won't matter if you stop after a few days or weeks. If you make learning languages a non-negotiable part of your day, you will improve. Now listen, you may have heard that more is not always better. Think about going to the gym. It doesn't make sense to train for 10 hours in one day and not training for the rest of the week. And even if you could keep the pace and train 10 hours every day, it is not physically possible to progress that way. You will have a burnout. However, this is what I love about learning languages. If you get obsessed with it and want to dedicate 4 or 5 hours a day, it could actually be better than one. It doesn't matter how obsessed you are with some things. You have to be patient and have a limit of progress that you can do every day. But language learning is more similar to a game. If you're that freak who farms twice as much as your friends when playing, this may apply to learning languages. Trust me, you can become a god in languages if you're crazy enough. But don't worry, you will do great with half an hour on average if that's what you can study every day. Just make sure to get the most out of those hours. Finally, enjoy the process. If you don't like it, you will quit. It's simple. You can spend hours scrolling on your phone, but 10 minutes of studying feels like torture. So don't study, acquire.